My next guest has close ties to the Bush family. He is the spokesman for her grandson, George Prescott Bush, who serves as the commissioner of the Texas General Land Office. Joining me right now is Lee Spiekerman. And in New York, Fox Business Network's Dagan McDowell. Great to see you this morning, Dagan. And Lee, thank you so much for joining us.
Terrific to be here.
How are you feeling this morning? Our condolences, of course.
Well, I didn't know Mrs. Bush well, but when I was working for Jeb Bush in the campaign in New Hampshire for president, near the end of that campaign, we were all surprised and uplifted when at age 90, Barbara Bush showed up on the campaign trail, and the crowds loved it, and she was bursting with energy and enthusiasm and really gave the campaign a lift. That man called Donald Trump had other ideas. We weren't able to stop the Trump train, which I'm now on, but it was wonderful, and I'd met her before that. Just a charming woman, a formidable woman, and I think tough as nails, which I'm not sure everyone, we're hearing a little about that fully appreciate, but just a real iconic First Lady.
I met her a few times. In fact, at one point I came here and viewed President George Bush's paintings, and she and President George H.W. Bush invited me back to their apartment. She could not have been more lovely and hospitable, but I think the one phrase that comes to mind always is that, tough as nails. And they had such a love affair. The First Lady and the President, known for their landmark love affair, so close, a marriage lasting 73 years. What an accomplishment. So in the wake of her death, a love letter from President Bush to his then fiancée in 1943 from World War II this morning, that's going viral. It reads in part, "This may sound melodramatic, but if it does, it is only my inadequacy to say what I mean. Bar, you have made my life full of everything I could ever dream of. My complete happiness should be a token of my love for you." Did you experience that, Lee, in any way? I mean, how their love impacted their children's lives? And of course, when you came into the picture, the family had grown so much. It was a real strong unit, the whole
I think
family.
It carries all the way through. You mentioned George P. Bush, who I'm working with as state land commissioner, and I think it's multi-generational, the influence that they've had, and that strong bond and that foundation is so crucial when you're dealing with the slings and arrows of the political world. And that's why we probably don't have many political dynasties, because frankly, it can destroy families. And instead, arguably, these challenges and the obstacles that they faced, and even the criticism, strengthened this family because of that bond between Barbara and George H.W. Bush. And we have to remember, too, that Barbara Bush and the former president, her husband, endured just the worst possible tragedy anybody can endure, which is the loss of a child. In 1957, Robin died of leukemia at age 4. And that can wreck marriages and just ruin lives. And it was, of course, devastating. But Barbara's ability to come back from that, she and her husband's ability to support each other, and even at a young age, George W. Bush helped prop his mother up, even as a kid. He said, you know, we've got to help Mom out, because she'd been very strong while Robin was fighting that illness. And then when Robin passed, it was just devastating for Barbara. But they came back, and 30 years later, she and her husband were on their way to the White House to succeed Ronald Reagan. So really an amazing story.
You know, you mentioned Robin passing away at the young age of 4. Someone mentioned to me yesterday that there is some comfort in knowing that Barbara will reunite with her daughter who passed.
Absolutely. And I
she
think
has such a strong faith.
That's it. I think that's the key word, is faith. And I think that it's not something that I think any of the Bushes wear in their shirt sleeves, but it's something ever present. And I think when we talked about the family holding together, how strong they've been, that faith has been ever present. It goes right through to George P. and the other members of the family that have succeeded. So that faith is very important, and it carries you through.
As First Lady, she really dedicated herself to promoting literacy. That was one of her main issue. She spoke with Fox News' Steve Doocy back in 2014, and she shares why she's so proud of the Barbara Bush Foundation for Family Literacy. Watch this.
We're in 50 states, and we were not in one state when we started. There were no programs before, and now we're in 50 states, and we've given away, I think, $60 million.
It was huge numbers, even for today's standards.
Right.
The legacy she lives behind, from your standpoint?
Well, one is, that focus on literacy. I don't think it's any accident that George W. Bush married a librarian and teacher. I mean, I think that focus on literacy was something that has pervaded the entire family. And, if you learn to read, you can do anything. And I think she understood that. I think it's something we need to keep focusing on today. I wish there was more focus on that in our schools. So I think that's probably her most visible, lasting legacy. But I think even greater legacy is her offspring, like George P. Bush, other grandchildren and descendants, because they have all benefited from her strength, her guidance, her example, and the fact that she was such an instrumental part of George H.W. Bush's success. I mean, he was the one that led us through the collapse of the Soviet Union and the fall of the Berlin Wall. And believe me, her strength, her presence there, even though she might not always have been out front, was absolutely crucial in that historic time and crucial time for our country.
A real partner.